Good evening, everyone. Welcome. We will get started tonight. First of all, we do the Manjushri. Praise to Manjushri. We'll do this in English. Then we will do the refuge on page 9. That one, according to the markings, bilingually. I pay homage to Guru and Lord Arya Manjushri. Your intelligence shines forth like the sun, unclouded by the two obscurations. You hold the scriptural text in your heart, symbolic of the seeing of all things as they are. Those who are caught in the prison of samsara are confused in the darkness, ignorance, and overwhelmed by their sufferings. In 60 ways with your speech you teach migrant beings to whom you are compassionate as your only child. Your proclamation of Dharma is like a roaring thunder, which awakens beings from the stupor of delusions and frees us from the iron chains of our karma. You wield the sword of wisdom, hewing down suffering wherever its sprouts appear, clearing away the darkness of ignorance. Primordially pure, your princely body is the embodiment of the perfection of a bodhisattva dwelling on 10th bhumi. I pay homage to Manjushri, who dispel my ignorance, whose body is adorned with 112 marks of a Buddha. With the brilliance of wisdom, O compassionate one, illuminate the darkness enclosing my mind, enlighten my intelligence, wisdom, so that I may gain insight into the Buddha's words and texts that explain them. Om Mara Bhazanadi, Amara 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 Amara Bhazanadi, 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 Amara Omara Bhazanadi. Page 9. Zanje Choedak Zoje Jonala Chanja Bada Dane Yazunje Dage Jenye Bae de Dage Rola Benja Zanje Rabai Jo Zanje Choedak Zoje Jonala Chanja Bada Dane Yazunje Dage Jenye Bae de Dage Rola Benja Zanje Rabai Jo. In Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment reach. By the merit of listening to these teachings, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all living beings. Samja damja dewa dan dewe ju da den ba ju je danga da danga je ju da ra wa ju je danga me be dewa da me da wa ju je nyere ja da nye da de May all living beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May all living beings be free from sorrow and the cause of sorrow. May all living beings not be separate from the bliss that is soulless. May all living beings live attachment and hatred towards near ones afar by living with equanimity. May all living beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May all living beings be free from sorrow and the cause of sorrow. May all living beings be free from the bliss that is sorrowless. May all living beings live attachment and hatred towards near ones afar by living with equanimity. Now we go back to page 3. We do chant the praise to Shakyamuni Buddha and then meditate, as we discussed last week, that in the space before is the holy presence of the fully enlightened Buddha. This is now Sagadawa, is Tibetan Buddhist most holiest month has started only a few days ago. So it's very good to remember, recollect the qualities of the Buddha and meditation in particular. So therefore, you can visualize the Buddha in the space before. We are reflecting on his entire life, and then we meditate and then visualize the receiving of the blessings in form of rays of light shining from his hair balls, particularly from the forehead and throat and heart, and think of not just ourselves but people, friends, and difficult situations that are not changing their mind or thoughts or ideas, so lost in the darkness, some in distress, physical illnesses, others in mental, emotional turbulence. Include all next to you and receive the blessings and include them in this prayer thoughtfully. We just heard the senior monk in Nalanda passed away last night, and we were talking last week. May he and all the people that associate be blessed in recollecting him of his good deeds that he contributed for the rebuilding of the monastery. And he passed away, but his work will be remembered very well, and his consciousness will no doubt find a peaceful space before he take a suitable rebirth to continue the work by the blessings of these prayers. And we have a number of people whose deceased names we have received also, so, and I'm sure you know some, and include them in the prayers, receiving the blessings. I bow down to the King of Shagyat, heaven, Yavaraj, Bodhima, Bhavada, Marada, Vajosa, Yavada, Zavova, Manebe, I praise you, Daimera to Sajadaga, Desanen eleven Fondewa, Yujagade Mayan Devi, I bad and your Dewan Game, Ada Demavane Shagabrin. And I wonder, Gravalumbene, Yavana Brahma Indra, I bad and have a body great, you the grace and I know human being, you just what is Gazamagada. You did to arrogance of others. I bade your hand unmeasurable in a God of a worldly conduct. Also in a daughter in also you took as a vescavata. I bad unto your candle, no evaluations of your time. Renaze hote jublowe, ode yose neda grezjeba, abadan joyo enobowa, rezo jevengete lademe, radese jeba grerewabe, Jazazation, Yazalazamandehamba, in Joseph beginelada, Yazanda wanda bodete, in Vajapochasahamuin. Wabada Wajayahaiba Lokewe Mesahaponobe Yadanda Mavela Sarana Azeobi Asantevega Aibajayoba Fondede Jure Yetezemata devadada and Amarazawaranase Sejengeveta Yohaiba Miragazelendo Shavaze Panarava Enadatewa Anabaya Himazadeva Yezvedeva Havalabada Devadazendembe Yevazenda Dagrenewana in the pure land of Kushinaga Pama Maravajahaiba Temele and Temele Yumemenere Ezezaga Sevazaipada Pada Mereda Presendade Ablazawa Mazawo Jije Meo Bezemele Ganda Oda Blazawa Sugada Oda King Oda Clan Oshaya Jazaya Badelas Vampira Aya Nemo Hazana Meha Bega Layo Adyada Mune Mune Mahamune Jaya Mune Zo 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 Adyada Mune Mune So as you know, this term we are choosing one particular topic and use analytical reasoning mind and then try to clarify what we think we know about the subject. If we have any doubts, we try to clarify them. If we have any understanding, we try to raise its realization and deepen its effect to make us to see things more clearly due to the teachings on the topic, because teachings of the Buddha is meant to teach us to change ways that we are not otherwise able to do on our own. It's meant to teach us. Buddha's teaching is a teaching. It points us to correct direction. Often we are lost in the junction, not knowing where to turn to, the first on the left or straight ahead or first on the right or go another circle. So the teaching of the Buddha, showing the way, it's called pointing the way. And if we look in the teachings, and if we are confused about something, it's all there. So tonight's topic is death and impermanence, because this is quite moving on to from last week's topic, the meditating on the precious and very special rebirth. It is, and particularly ours. We are blessed to have lived as long as we have. Quite a lot of people are born as we are, but didn't quite make even half of our lifespan, not even a quarter of it. And during that they didn't get to do much. So therefore, we are already many times fortunate for the fact that we have lived as long as we have, as fortunately as this in this country, and as many freedoms as we talked last week. And but how long is this going to go? And are we going to do the same things we're doing if the time is limited? If time is infinite, of course we might still keep on. But what are the very important things to do? So the teaching on death and impermanence is a very important topic in Buddhism. Not because people fear death, because death is real and it is happening all the time. As we mentioned, the Lama in Nalanda, he's the senior monk. He's only 64, so, and he's dead now. I only saw him last year, and he's strong and robust and helping the nunneries and doing all of that, but there was no sign that he had the illness. And only a few months ago that he was in hospital, and his body deteriorate day after day, and he just breath last yesterday. So that therefore the purpose of the meditation on death and impermanence is so that we become more thoughtful of the shortness of the time rather than longness of the time we might have. We can think of shorter time we have, then we become much more prioritizer of what to do within that period of time, and become a little bit more better in shortlisting things rather than try to think that we got a lot to do, we can do a lot, and end up not doing the good things at all and become put off. So the purpose of these meditation on as I write here, just as a person who has come for a 3-day visit from somewhere is aware that he cannot stay long because he's made plan to go to the next place, meditate and say to ourselves that I cannot stay in this life for long, so I have to go to the next. Have I made the preparation to go to the next place? Because usually we do. Even traveling in July, we already make the plans, and we already make the plans. But the most eminent departure that we really gonna go, definitely we are going. We don't know where to. Maybe that's the problem. Because usually we think we know we're going in July and all this. What do we do? But death people, actually people would know deep in their mind where they're going. So here, there are two types of impermanence. Impermanence of the outer world and impermanence of the inner sentient being. When we refer to the impermanence of the outer world, we're referring to mostly the inanimate world, environment itself. And its impermanent isn't a uniquely Buddhist concept. It is the way it is, Buddha simply spelled it out as his reckoning because he sees so clearly, but people are not able to see. That's why he's a seer, He's an awakened one on top of that. He sees the importance of knowing the impermanence of all things and therefore become more conscientious of what one does. Buddha said that thinking of impermanence is more beneficial for the person than making all the things he or she owns as offering to the Buddhas. People who make humongous offering, we say, oh, he was so generous, he's so great. But Buddha doesn't need any of the offerings. But if the person thinks of impermanence, then actually they themselves will start doing things that are really good. Maybe people need to reconcile with people or things, repay kindness of others, whatever it is. They actually then start doing things when we think of impermanence. We also don't hold our anger or negativity for long. They say it's pointless. I'll be dead before I can, have a victory over this issue. So you learn to sort of drop everything and not invest negativities when you think of impermanence. So gross impermanence of the elements, we talk about climate change these days. In a Buddhist teaching, it says that the whole the solar system or world system that this itself is very numbered, The era of the Buddha himself is only 5,000 years, and that's just a small chunk in the big era, And the very environment we have, so the physical environment. You look at the map of Europe, oh gosh, the shape of the country is just going like this. Somebody showed a little clip there about the history of this map of Europe last 50 years. Some countries dissolving, some countries are manifesting from nowhere. It's like that. Some so impermanent. So just think of all the impermanent. Impermanent doesn't mean necessarily bad. It just means the way it is. Things change. So to try to hold on to something as that's real and permanent is a wrong view. Impermanence is a really powerful, one of the four pertinent teachings of the Dharma, what we call seal of the Dharma. And also it's one of the very powerful cornerstones of the right view, that because otherwise everybody is materialistic and permanent. They're holding on to permanent things. There are no permanent things, but they think they are permanent. And actually everything is impermanent, but people thinking it is permanent. And when that impermanent proves to be impermanent, then they get disappointed. But actually it was always impermanent. So how long it takes to realize impermanent? Until we realize we didn't know at all. But to know everything's impermanent is never a shock to lose it. We'd never lose anything. It never was ours. So there's no feeling of losing something. because it never was ours. Everything was borrowed for maybe day or week, or maybe even that is slipping, from morning to afternoon, afternoon to evening. There is no morning that is permanent. There is no afternoon that is permanent. Every time slot that is named shows afternoon, it says. Afternoon is already after the noon. Then evening, it's now evened. As we started yesterday, it's even no longer hot anymore. Then in the late night, it's called late. It's already late night. And midnight. Then wee hours. It's all in the language, how transient everything is. And yet we think, this happened to me, or this happened. We think that it's unprecedented, it's an unannounced. It always is impermanent. Impermanent is the only thing that is permanent. Reliably impermanent. So if you realize impermanence, nothing makes you to feel shocked, disbelief. It doesn't happen. It's just they talk about trust or something in the materialistic world. It's a question of trust. Is a term of certainty. Clinging. It's a word of clinging. Buddha never used the word trust. Impermanence he used. He said truth of suffering. The truth was about suffering and impermanence, not about trust and clinging and permanent, the grasping, all that loyalty, all that kind of word. People, they don't exist. They don't exist. They're just materialistic terminology. So therefore we need to realize what is the purpose of impermanence. Impermanence of the outer world and a subtle impermanence of the of course, some things are impermanent only after maybe a few decades we think things change. Other things are just subtle. But even from morning to afternoon, you can tell the color of the trees or leaves or the shade of the grass. It's impermanence all the time. Everywhere is evident. It's the teaching of impermanence everywhere. It's not just in tonight's class. It's written all over the place if we look around, Whether it's people or what they do or where they live, what they're doing or what they're not doing, and so on. Just constantly, it's impermanent everywhere. Subtle impermanence of color of trees, nature of the government, nature of these, whatever. Then impermanence of all inner sentient beings, the inhabiting sentient beings, impermanence of other sentient beings, impermanence of oneself. This is too really important, because people think that when some people change, we think they shouldn't do that. We don't realize we are changing unintentionally. We are also changing physically, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually. Hope so. Otherwise we wouldn't get enlightenment if it's not impermanent, because we are not enlightened now. So impermanent means that anything can happen and we have hope for change. So because people change, we get disappointed. We change, we don't want to acknowledge that we are changing. As we are permanent, we are always good or always reliable. Always. It's not like that. Everybody is impermanent, either other people or oneself. So that's just generally about impermanence, generalism. The impermanence actually is what we call mild terminology of death. The death actually is the kind of rough terminology of impermanence. But actually they shouldn't say death and impermanence, because impermanence is impermanence. It's full stop. I don't know, it's death of what? Death of permanence. when you say death, it's a death of permanence, isn't it? So that's what it is, really. Otherwise you can't be born and then stay for 50 years and then die. That's not the case. As soon as one is born, one is already changing. There's no born and then stays born. One is already changing. So it's continuously impermanent, continuously dying, continuously changing. So probably more neutral word is change, changing all the time, Being able to see that is a very good meditation. So therefore one meditates on this way. Firstly, inevitability of death. All have died and none has survived. You have just imagine that how many people have come and they all have gone, and they never have stayed any one place, stayed the same. Even though we say he died 79 years age, but he never stayed 79 always. He was never 79. He just turned 79 5 weeks ago. And before that he was 78. So there's so there is nothing always nothing survives, always changing constantly. All have died. Big empires, big kings, powerful monarchs, all have come and nobody have survived. So our death is also inevitable. Lifespan is always getting shorter, and that's one sign of, say if we have a lifespan of 80 years, if we are already 50, we got 30 years left. If fingers crossed, maybe we may live 30 years, but there's no guarantee that everything stays as far as its expiry date. So, got a lot of things are made to last. I don't know, maybe made to last for 80 years, but they collapse when they're 30. So there's no guarantee. Lifespan is always getting shorter, particularly in degenerate time. Degenerate time, most people, things are not replenishable. Definite to die before achieving many things. One has to think of death as certain, and lifespan is getting shorter, and particularly we are definite to die before achieving many things. So plan not many things. Do fewer things because I'm definite to die. Because then you'll be able to shortlist and prioritize few things we really need to do. And definite to die, as no wealth can ransom death. You can't say I am wealthy, I can ransom death. I can sue the Lord of Death. Like Clive Palmer, he think he can sue everybody. He think he can sue everybody, but I don't think when it comes to death, he can't sue anybody. Even his money can't sue death. Otherwise, whoever is saying something, he says, I'll sue you. Because he's so wealthy and he think he can sue you. But with the death, he can't sue it. Death is such a formidable force. And definitely to die is no power can defeat death. You can't say I have power, I have friends, there is nothing you can do about death. Definitely to die is no argument can dissuade it. You can't use your intelligence and argue and trick and cheat death. You can't do that. Some people did that. They didn't cheat death, but they pretended that he didn't die. So the fifth Dalai Lama died, but his minister wanted to adopted son actually. His adopted son actually was in power. He's the chief minister. Because he wanted to finish the big projects of building the Potala, fifth Dalai Lama death is announced, he thought he will not succeed the project. So he kept the death secret. He put a lookalike, the fifth Dalai Lama, on the throne on some ceremonies. Otherwise, he kept that activity going. So his purpose was to, yes, there are cases like that. But otherwise, there is you can't argue death. You can't do anything. You can't run because you're a speed runner. you're a sprint runner. You can't fly. You can't hide on top of a mountain. You can't hide beneath ocean. you can't hide beneath your favorite blanket. So death couldn't find you. So it's just totally for. You can't do hide and seek with death. He'll find you wherever, Even you're not sick, he'll get you. You don't have to be even sick to die. You don't have to be old to die. You don't have to be poor to die. You just have to be born. And as he just needs that requirement, and we all fit that category. Everybody's fit to die because we're born. So it's so simple, death will happen definitely because nothing can avoid death. Nothing can avoid death. So therefore, meditating on the inevitability of death, that's a certainty of death. The benefit of thinking of certainty of death is then we start thinking in shorter terms, and then you don't carry on and linger on and maintain these thoughts and problems in your mind as you got long time to resolve these things. Most things are not even worth investing any thought. Just focus on few, because I'll be dead before I can do all of this. And then certainty of dying quickly. Not only death is certain, but dying more quickly than before. Each day is getting closer. Each day is getting closer. Even you walk backwards, we're getting closer to the death. Not only when you go forward, we're getting closer to death. Even you going backwards, you're getting closer to death. And postponement is ineffective. Even you try to postpone your die, it doesn't work. You're just fooling yourself thinking you can postpone death. Yeah, and causes of death are numerous. Yeah, you can't say I will live long because causes of death are numerous. People have died from doing things they thought they were going to go on holiday. People thought they're having been promoted or whatever. Never know what can cause immediate death. So even the medication, even the wealth, even the celebration can cause death. Parties become cause of death. Victory celebration can cause death. So there are nothing that is not a kind of valid cause of death, because the main cause of death is already gone, born. Birth is already finished. Everything is secondary, And you might think you're stronger. You think you're strong, but actually our elements are getting weaker and weaker. Particularly they say when you turn age 45. And after that, everything is getting weaker and weaker, and you can actually see them. You can see them, shrinking. Shrinking. The sense organs are weaker. Memories are fading. Motivation also dying. The joints. Some people have not the original kneecap anymore. They have other people's plastic or some other people's knee. So not only elements are getting weaker, you don't even have your own elements with you. You're wearing somebody else's kneecap. The people, So lots of the parts of the body are just held together by some steel brackets or something. Their actual socket, the joints are not working. They have other things, all sorts of things. Just imagine. Some people have cut some piece of their flesh on some parts, and patching from here to there, here to here. So you can all these holes everywhere, basically. So the body is therefore it's not a strong thing. It's numerous elements are getting weaker. Cause of staying alive is few. Basically everything is not cause of staying alive. The cause is much fewer. Even medicine can cause death. So therefore, meditating on the certainty of getting the death close, quicker and quicker. You can't say, I'm young. Some die young, some die in the womb, There are lots of, if it wasn't the modern medication, in the third world country, lots of mothers and the would-be child both dies, Only in developed countries, fewer and fewer happening. Even then happens. What they call, people die in the womb, what called stillbirth or miscarriage. We call miscarriages. You don't have to die being born. Even before born, you're dying. You see, even before being born, you die. You see, and the mother who was going to give birth dies. Cause of birth is also dying. Unable to give birth, complications of birth. Lots of people, on all that. Others at the moment of birth, at the couple of hours after birth, the baby didn't survive. There's a lot of stories. Some while learning to crawl, they call SID, isn't it? SID. Sudden infant death syndrome, SIDS, Yeah, so while in the hospital, first week, they never came home with the baby. They went to deliver the baby at the hospital. They delivered, they had all that hardship of carrying the baby, giving birth, but died, They never came back with the baby. Others are just walking, baby just barely able to walk. And then they die. And some grow old, like we are. I'm growing old now. And some die young, Some doesn't get to become old. Some never get to celebrate 45th birthday. They never made it. They made it not even 27, Yeah, we know that. Some die 3 years, 4 years old, 5 years. Some die in the prime of youth. They just finished university. They were just started a brand new job. First, and so there is no one can do anything about it. Eventually, everyone passes away. So quite a lot of people feel sad when they think of meditating on death. They feel it's morbid, or they think we shouldn't be talking about that. That's really not because they're not used to it. If one starts thinking early, it's so logical, so important to think, because it's the part of life. It's not anti-life. It's what the life really is culminating to eventually. It's just like someone studies university. You expect them to have a graduation. It's life also is a graduation. Death is a graduation, whether you did well or not. Yeah, so death is real, and not only death is certain, but time of death is getting closer, because death does not happen in the future. People usually die in the now, and not only that, of course, right now we call death when the consciousness leaves the body. There's no breath, no consciousness, no warmth in the body. So therefore, what is the death? The death is the body's elements that are dying. The consciousness doesn't die. This is why we Buddhists talk so much of death. It's not death of the consciousness. It's a death of its tendency in that body. It's expiring. They cannot renew the tendency. That's the problem. The building is too old. The building is not good, so you got to move on. If you have booked another one, but the consciousness doesn't die. That's what even non-Buddhists call soul. They don't say soul died. The death is the parting of the soul from the conscious physical living organ. But the consciousness, the mind stream itself, doesn't die. It continues because it is light. Light cannot die. Light cannot die with elements. It's the elements. So that's very important to understand, that death is mainly parting of the body and the consciousness rather than death of the consciousness. Of course, there is a little moment when the consciousness, the visible consciousness of the visual or sense organs, the death of the sense organs, no longer can see or hear or smell or taste or touch. So that's what we call death. But actual mental consciousness, what they call soul, even by other traditions, they don't say soul dies. They say soul goes, or heaven or hell. So basically everybody believes that there is the soul is still continuing. Consciousness is still continuing. So there's no death of the soul or the consciousness. It's a relationship with the body. So therefore it's a death of the body as a living organism, and so that means. So that's what I mean by death does not happen in the future. Even as we sit here, our body is slowly decaying. Well, not quite, rotting, but I notice all the time that my ear is full of earwaxes. I don't know when it is casting those things, It's like someone is constantly sweeping something from there and trying to push this out. No wonder every bathroom has earbuds and all those things, Isn't it? So when you look at it, they're constantly dying. It's not the future the body will die. It's continuously. Your hair is dropping, your skin's dropping, and so basically the death is not happening in the future. It's actually happening. And the good thing about our living body is it may be shedding the dead skins, but it's actually renewing other skins. Yeah. So this constant replacement is called impermanent. Total extinction is called death, but constantly going through this change is what is impermanent is, and aging is. We can call them aging. Aging may be more noticeable, after people turn like 40 plus or something, but actually the person is aging every moment from the day one, So death is happening every moment. So it's good to know that death or change or impermanence is happening every moment towards that inevitable. It's like every step is taking closer. The cow walking to the slaughterhouse is getting closer every moment, And likewise, every day we are getting closer to that, and so therefore, inevitably the parting of the consciousness from the body is inevitable. It's happening, and every moment we lift our feet up, every moment we breathe in and breathe out, every day that we turn the calendar like this, we are actually the death of that day, the death of May 2014, only 4 days old. Now June is thinking it's the young one, but June is already that day, and then June slowly. June is also every moment. It is affecting everywhere at all times. So death is not something happens to because maybe one of us have some difficult things happening, then death. No. Even people who are having wonderful success in the other things, but death is still affecting them. So death is not happens to poor people or people who are going through difficult. No, death happens to everybody. Actually, the reason we have so many depressed people in the world is because they don't cope with the loss of loved ones. They lost somebody they love, and then they could never look at the world with the same eye. They just can't breathe or appreciate anything anymore. And actually, you can see when we don't understand death. It is that's what death is one of the 4 great river of sorrow. You call it river of sorrow in which people get drowned. I definitely believe that most of the depression is all caused by not coping with the death of the loved ones. And who will cope very well? The majority wouldn't if they lost their only mother, or their only father, or only brother, or only sister. And that's exactly what happened. And not the only father didn't live long, or only mother didn't live long. She died in prime youth. And then, the young child, how could they cope? And you can see lots of the depression is loss and grief, and not being able to understand death. If we tell right from the very beginning to people about death, maybe people will learn to move a little bit better, because this whole society doesn't talk a lot about it, and then they think it's a tragic thing happened to us that hasn't happened to other people, type of thing. So that's why meditating on the death is so important. The body is not a single solid substance. So it looks like when we die, it looks like solid thing doesn't work all of a sudden. But actually, it's got many things changing, regrowing, changing, regrowing. But there isn't anything, one entity that is alive always, except the consciousness residing in the body, and therefore there's a breath and a warmth. And otherwise, the body itself there's nothing, one entity that is staying alive, Some people got little machines working in the heart or somewhere. They're doing the job. But actual heart is failed quite a while ago. Some people are other people's lung, So some people have the transplant of other people's lung, They don't have the lung of their own, So actually, there's no one body that is actually one entity. One part of body. There's nothing that is one entity on it. It's all dependent on each other, holding together. So if wasn't the consciousness in the body, the actual body itself is not one solid entity that is strong and that got a lifespan, Merit, lifespan, and karma are the three that determines how long that we survive and remain as a living being in that body. If these three, the triple exhaustion, merit and lifespan and karma, if there's triple exhaustion, you can't do anything. That's what happens. If it's dual exhaustion, say one of the three is not exhausted, then you can actually do things to prevent the death from happening, like long life practices, or healthy things to do, or rescuing other living beings from dying, or like that. You can do various things to compensate the karma and merit and lifespan. But because it's not one entity by itself, the body is not a single solid thing. Body, many parts of the body are dropping, losing, and they are growing again because of the other factors. We're staying strong. So it's important. Shantideva says, firstly, mentally separate the layers of the skin. Actually, according to Shantideva, the Buddhist teacher, they said the skin, we have 7 layers of skin. 7 layers of skin from the flesh. So when you take the flesh, skin out of the flesh, then the flesh will be manifesting. Some not much, like here, there's not much flesh here. Just when you take the skin, the tendon will show. He says, I haven't got any flesh here. Go somewhere else. Other places you remove the skin, there will be flesh, and then with the scalpel of discrimination, separate the flesh from the skeletal frame. And then you slowly think of what's inside the flesh, and there's a bone, And having split open, the bones look right down to the marrow. There isn't anything that is solid or substance, strong. They're all amazing how they are actually holding together at all. It's like a magic. This fact that we have a body that is still we can walk and live in it, do these things, are quite a magical gift. And it's very precious, but only as long as it lasts. And as long as it does good while it's alive. But otherwise, it's very, very fragile. Very, very fragile, isn't it? The most experts, skiers, most expert, surfers, they're so powerful, but the elements are so strong, If they make a little mistake, they could be easily just sucked by the whirlpool of it, and they wouldn't know. Body is so small. Human body is very fragile when it comes to elements. Say if right now we are actually conditioning the air conditioning. Look at the heat working very hard up there. If we didn't have all the woolies and all the buildings, we probably will not survive in the cold. And animals are dying like that every night. Because they didn't survive the cold. And so when one is thinking about the fragility of the body, the being able to think of the fragility of the body, and then we think that where is this so solid me? There is no solid self there. There is not in the body, not that is the body, and there is nothing that is resident in the body that is more solid than the body. You couldn't see the resident. You can't find the resident. And when you look through all the residents, there's no resident. I mean, that's strange, isn't it? Most houses got some people living there. but this body doesn't have the resident. So who's dying? See, nobody. So that's a good thing. A good thing is the self is not a thing. It's the consciousness is consciousness is actually immortal, Consciousness is immortal. Buddha nature or light. Light is immortal, So when the light has karma, the consciousness of karma and defilements, then it is stuck in this world. But otherwise, when the consciousness self becomes free from the body, then it's we call death, but in Buddhism it's called liberation. When your consciousness leaves the body, you actually have no gross suffering. Then that's the end of suffering. Actually, death is end of suffering of life. So, if life wasn't so good, you should thank the death. Because at least at death, there is no suffering. Living, it actually means always suffering. So why are people so afraid of death? It is the greatest peace. The greatest peace. Most people couldn't imagine how death is peace, isn't it? Most people couldn't imagine it but actually it's ceasing to suffer, because it doesn't have a attachment or thing that it holds. And so when you talk about death, you can see everybody got a little bit, they feel, just ouch. You don't quite want to go on him anymore, That's enough, so to speak. It's enough. Can you please stop there? Because we're still alive. Please don't talk about it. Don't ruin my evening. People don't usually want to talk about death, isn't it? The reason is because they really wanted to hold on to. Now, wait until you really know the benefit of that meditation. The benefit of this meditation is that as soon as you think of death, you think of impermanence, then you start thinking of, you will turn to Dharma. And so that's one of the things that turns your mind to the Dharma is when you think of impermanence and death. Then you realize that what's the point of clinging to this? What's the point of getting attached to this? What's the point of being angry over this? And so when I die, nothing helps. Nothing of these things I'm attached to helps. Nothing that I gain victory from helps, unless I have good mind stream filled with the virtuous, wholesome, selfless, loving kindness, compassion, devotion, joy, gratitude. If I don't have these, and there's nothing can help. My money can't help. My friends can't help. Possession could not help. They actually can hold your consciousness back even worse. If wealth has been cause of misery while you're making it, wait until you die. They become cause of ongoing sufferings even after death. So therefore, people turn to Dharma when they think of death. The positive actions will be encouraged. It straight away knows that it says that at death nothing can ransom your death, but only thing that helps at death and after is the Dharma, is the practice of Dharma. And then what is Dharma is doing wholesome things. So your positive actions will be naturally encouraged. You start doing good deeds. You start repaying the kindness before you die, or forgive the others, apologize, and reconnect with friends, spend time with the loved ones. And when you start doing these, and then you are actually living. Then you're really living. Positive actions are encouraged and possess understanding and clarity of mind. Your mind will really be clear every day. Something happens, you can see that that is attachment to permanence. Whatever you are unhappy about is because you wanted to hold on to something that is not there, as if that is there. So you can see clearly how deluded I am to be thinking like this, because I'm trying to hold on to something that is actually not there. So your mind is a lot more clarified by thinking of impermanence, thinking of impermanence or death, and then you can see that there's the futile, all effort people take action. They call it. Take action means do bad things, do retaliatory things, do avenging the past, ruining the present. They call it. They say, avenging the past succeed not, but ruin the present. And the person who understands impermanence will not waste his time doing that. His mind is very clear. I'm not going to waste the time. Remedy problems with dignity and wisdom. Yeah, when you understand the impermanence of death, you remedy the problems in a more sane, wise, and dignified, humane way. It doesn't matter what somebody has done, but you're not going to do it. There's some kind of a goodness, in fitness, in clarity, in wisdom, and in insight in the mind of the person who think of impermanence. They say, one who fears death shouldn't do that. He knows that even though he can get away with doing that now, but his karma will follow like the ox whose hoof is followed by the cart he pulls. So therefore, person will try to remedy those things, and instead of trying to avenge, try to get even. What they call take action. One's mind is so clear that it's futile and mutually destructive thing to do, and therefore let go. And dignity and wisdom, and a person who understand law of impermanence, death, and they also are very kind. They are much able to practice kindness and patience to other people. They would see that this person is going through a lot of hardships, and me too. If I'm being more hard to him, what's the benefit of it? We're already both heading to this graveyard. As going to the graveyard itself is not sufficient, bad enough. Why should I have to do this, Goodness sake, let him give him a break. And so we withdraw. We withdraw from being so unfair to them, and that becomes fair to oneself as well. And so it stops the kind of actions, the action-orientated push and drive people have, what they think is a way of getting even at something. It prevents us from taking such drastic, destructive actions. Because you think of death, you also not just think of death, but you think of karma. Because you may be dead, but karma follows. You remember, we already studied that. What you do, effect of the karma will follow. You cannot escape even after death. So some karma may not ripen in this life, but they definitely will ripen next. So therefore, trying to do something just because we want to do, there is no advantage in that. And therefore, one rather have the fitness to practice patient. Because practicing patient now may be inconvenient, but one who knows the law of impermanence, karma, knows how wise it is, rather forbear difficulty now, so as to prevent bad future awaiting before us. So almost like the death and impermanence helps the person to actually understand the karma and honors the karma, and also accepts the karma. If when we are going through difficulty, we understand them as a result of some past causes. And so nothing happens without causes. And as soon as you accept it, then the problem dies, basically. Otherwise, people keep the problem alive, by their own retaliatory, avenging, negative attitude. So a person actually sees the merit of being patient, merit of being kind, as a consequences of being kind is far better for the dead person and his consciousness later on. So even though he's going to die, but he still knows that after death, the karma still rolls on. Karma rolls over into the next life. They call roll over, in financial terminology. So you don't stop with the. So they say karma doesn't ripen on the salamim, on the soil or on the rock, but only ripens on the mind stream. Karma ripens on the very mind stream, not on the house or the things, inanimate object. Karma ripens on the mind stream by which it did it. And so therefore, one who knows one's going to die still doesn't give up the practicing kind or patient, virtuous things because he knows the law of causality very clearly. That's not going to kill him. He's not going to die with that. He's going to come conscious about that. So even a person is dying, he's not dying, basically. He's actually becoming more alive, more alive with that understanding. Because benefit of the benefit we are talking about. And quickly able to let go and not stay in the past, People talk about, I'm healed. Those who are able to meditate on impermanence and death also not just means that you let go now, but you actually, if you're going to have some difficulty now, you realize this, maybe I have done this to some people before. So if I had just let go and forgive them, it's one way of purifying, exhausting my own karma. We become more responsible, quickly able to let go, and not stay in the dark past. Because every moment we stay in our thoughts and mind in the past, we're wasting present. They say avenging past ruins the present. And that's what the post-traumatic stress disorder, It's all about past that we are worrying about. And then stress is in the moment now. Stress is in the present. And we cannot make that impermanent. That also rolls over. And then the negative karma or whatever thoughts also just habit just rolls over, becomes stronger in that area. And then person is not recovering. Because he's doing self-harm, basically. So he's actually, why he's fearing death? He's causing it. One moment one doesn't want the effect, but another moment one is actually causing it. It's just like seeing the fire and then throwing all the wood on it. Still says, please don't start the fire. But one who understands the fire and fuel actually tend to subtract the fuel and do the fires, So ability to see good in what is before one's eyes. One who understands impermanence and death, they see something good right before them, and they're not distracted by past. They rather focus something they can see while they can see. One day they couldn't even see that. That might be their That might be little brother or sister or mother, or but one can do for each other. That might be the only year that you might have. You might not even have a year. Like my friend, when he went to see Tibet, he went to Tibet on Thursday. Yeah, he went on Thursday, and then on Friday he just saw his uncle, and 4 hours later he died. So that might be the only 4 hours that he thought he might just be able to see him. That's exactly he's going just enabled just to 4 hours, and then there was no more hour left to do anything with that. So sometimes it's just what is before our eyes. It will not stay there long. When we think of a dying, live happily, and when one is able to do that, do the death and dying impermanent meditation very effectively, then we are able to live more happily, because live happily means we act as we are alive. We give ourselves the best support, and we give the same to those around us, and we don't beat the past. And we still, and as a result of that, we become much more peaceful, contented, and we were not constantly craving or hoarding or wanting, because we're much more and contented using what we have, able to honor good things and complain less. That's exactly when also, and being able to be contented and no longer complaining anything. Person who's not thinking of death is always complaining. Person who's thinking of dying, no point complaining. If you really want to complain to death. Why should I die? So people who think of, that's what they said, death is very powerful practice. When you do, it stops us from doing the things that are harmful to us. We stop doing them. And freedom from anxiety and fear of death. Yeah, freedom from anxiety. Lots of people are anxiety and depression is because they're afraid of dying. You kind of fearful of something that's definitely going to happen. You just plan for it, and at least you are very much more prepared, and then you become more skillful in using the time before it actually happens. So those are all the meritorious things about meditating on the death and impermanence. But those are only few people get to meditate on death and dying, deliberately choose the subject and meditate thoroughly, step by step, and then realize, and then make some reasonable changes in their attitude to life and difficulties they have, and learn to not make them that much difficult, drop one's wrong views regarding that, and then they'll make it a lot easier. But majority of people don't meditate on death and impermanence. They think it's some Buddhist subject. They said, the Buddhists do meditation on death and dying. The demerit of lack of this meditation is not suffered by those people who meditate on death, but those who don't meditate on death, dying, then they ignore the very practice that forget the practice of Dharma because they don't think of death and dying. They may want to practice but procrastinate or delay or find many excuses, and never a right time or right company or right time or right practice. So it's always something, forget the importance of practice Dharma. Even remembered one will procrastinate, practice may be mixed with worldly concern. Even if one practices Dharma, one who hasn't got adequate realization of impermanent death, practice of Dharma becomes more like a worldly pursuit or concern, mixed with worldly concern. It always will be some worldly concern. That's not avoidable, but we're talking about how better the quality of one's practice is. A lot of people practice, but still they are wanting to find out what are the rest of the world going on, type of thing. Others are really practice, and they just don't want to know about anything. They just want to focus on the practice, and not concerned about all the things. When discouraged, practice may be abandoned. Anything difficult happen? And that's enough. That's enough to just turn your mind totally off. When one hasn't have realized sufficient realization of impermanence and death, easy to be discouraged. So that the foundation, what we call the realization of impermanence and death, is a very good foundation. It really grounds you to stay tuned in the practice and committed to honor your practice. When discouraged, practice may be abandoned or find whatever the excuses. Doing negative deeds waste time and effort. That's exactly if one hasn't realized impermanence. Easily influenced by bad companions. One is so easily influenceable by slightest negative influence. And because one doesn't have the combating realization, one doesn't have the remedy for that. If one's realization of impermanent death is strong, all the remedies are strong, right? Effort will be there, diligence will be there, and one is not quite vulnerable or swayable by difficult circumstances. Swayed by afflictions and remain scattered, yeah. When once my realization of impermanence death not there, one fit of a negative emotion arises, and it just made you to stayed scattered, and lost it basically. They call lost the plot. Yeah, lost the plot. Anxiety in life and fear of death. Yeah. Then person is alive but doesn't look like they're alive. There's still anxiety. They're still denying and angry and not accepting death. But instead they become more fearful of death, as if they didn't have a good run. They have lived already 60 years, 70 years, 40 years, but still they think they didn't have done much. I really have another 40 years. As you can make up for the whatever. This is going to be illusory, as your next 30 years will be much fitter and more saner. If one hasn't realized these things, it's not going to make it easier. Elements get weaker, all things changes, everything deteriorates, so the conditions are not going to get better. Feel intense regret and at the time of death. That's right. This person who didn't meditate on impermanence and death, and then they procrastinate the practice Dharma, then they really have regret. They really die of regret. Feel intense regret at the time of death and blame themselves, and then that rebirth will be pretty unthinkably good, not so that good. Because rebirth is very much determined by the mentality or attitude of the person's mind state. Person who die peacefully, happily, gracefully, and probably will go to higher rebirth or good rebirth. Person who die with regret and anger and blame, and that's exactly the least appropriate mentality, mind. And then the form of life one will have, as we talked about in all the other realms of existence, is most of them are just unthinkable. Even to come back as a human is pretty awful, really. Samsara is just is not worthy of thinking of coming back. They say if you truly realize the suffering nature of samsara, like a bird whose nest has been burnt many times doesn't feel like going to the burnt nest. Likewise, one doesn't feel like coming to the world because of where it is. So therefore, most people they are dying, but they cannot die. They're still clinging. They're still holding on to something. They regret they didn't do A, B, C, and yet they are not doing about now. Even now, and yet they don't want to die. So such a person usually not only live miserably but die miserably, and then that whatever next incarnation will be, if possible, to have a human, will be even more miserable one. So karma follows. So that's why the Buddha said to the one Indian king, "Your Majesty, no matter how wealthy you may be, when you depart and go to another world, into the next world, you will be like a man attacked by enemies in a foreign land, alone without sons or your concubines." So it means you're completely alone. And not only alone, but not a place you know. Bardo is such a treacherous place. It doesn't have any road. It's not lit. There's no signposts. There are no road signs. So Pardo is totally foreign, no one has written a Lonely Planet guide for Pardo beings, Everywhere else you could go, at least you can buy the Lonely Planet guide and see where is a good place to go. Nobody has written. Tibetan Book of the Dead is supposed to be Lonely Planet's guide, but the description in that is frightening, actually. Most people don't want to read the book. Looks like if without a real guide, you don't want to go there. So death is fearful. So the point of this subject is we just have to consider dying. We have to plan to die, because we have already arrived at the station. we already arrived at the station. It's just question is when are we going to jump? Yeah. So plan to die. The good thing about this is if you plan to die, start thinking of dying, and the good thing about that is it will make you start living, truly living. And what does living constitute? Repair the kindness of the loved ones. You look around, you have your own kind people, very special people, from few to maybe half a dozen or more. When you start looking at that, maybe your own mother or father or parent or grandparent, they are really not far from dying very quickly. Try to repair kindness before it's too late. That's one of the things. Repair the kindness of the loved ones. Heal the past wounds, reconnect with others. This is now living. This is real living. Heal the wounds by apologizing or forgiving or whatever it is. Just try to patch up to have some kind of friendship. Offer apology with sincere regret to help all. People have often delayed or never found a convenient time. But don't put them off anymore, because if you didn't get to do it before you die, it definitely will be. So that might be now. That might be this week. That might be this year. And if person isn't going to schedule a time to do that, when they're going to do it? And when people start doing that, they start becoming alive. They have things to do. They have got important things to do. The moment they apologize, the moment they repay kindness, they are alive. They filled that compensated all the things they delayed in the past. Now they not have regret dying. Now they wouldn't regret dying, because at least they can now breathe peacefully, and then they say rest in peace. Yeah, then can rest in peace. Otherwise, no resting in peace. Honor all loved ones, living or dead. Even somebody we love is dead. Which many people's case is. Yeah. Just go and honor them. Do something. Go to the graveyard and take something at the headstone and say them thank you. And we may have not thanked them. We may have not have thanked properly. We may not have apologized them over something. We may not have recognized the valid contribution. It's like I know Rinpoche is in Nepal, and he posted a photo of a monk. I also remember he said under the photo, "Oh, this monk, his photograph I found today." He says, "This monk was most kind because I didn't have a father, but he adopted me as his son." And so like honoring like that before it's too late. It's really good. And being able to honor that. And it's never too late. And when you honor somebody, you feel such a great happiness that you're alive, and you can do that before you forget. Because we're so forgetful, we're so negligent. And visit places one has long wished to go. Yeah, then you start, then you wouldn't put off, and you start actually doing something you love to do, and you might be quite totally happy. You did few things you want to do, and now what? And you're surprised you're still not dying. Then instead of fearing and procrastinating, you actually the Tibetan king did that. One Tibetan king that did that 3 times. He gave all the wealth to the poor, and he planned to die. He said sorry to everybody, thanked everybody. He didn't die. He couldn't believe because he came alive. You see, that can restore your merit. Actually, that can really make your life really fully lived in. Then you really act like you're alive. And he did that 3 times. 3 times. And then basically he resurrected his life 3 times. Because otherwise, not. Because, and do the things that are dear to you. People often don't get to do what they really like to do. And because they think they'll do later. But when you think really dying, you realize you can shortlist, and if I don't have this, it's like say you're living in 5 days. You got to really. Then you really start doing. I do that all the time. If I'm leaving tomorrow, do I pack it tonight or tomorrow morning? And then tomorrow morning, 2 hours. Then I'm packing straight away. Because I've done this so many times, I'm pretty good at last minute packing. Last minute packing. When your bag don't arrive, then it's really interesting. Which happened today, by the way. I arrived from New Zealand, my bag didn't arrive. So sometimes we pack, but the thing didn't come. You see, so don't pack too much. On the other world, they don't allow toothbrush. They don't allow anything. They just bring virtue. They say, just bring virtue. They just bring merit. Don't bring any of your trade. Don't bring anything. Just bring wholesome things. Don't bring any of your attachments. So they don't allow to bring, So. And do not procrastinate to do the above. Yeah, that's if you plan to die and start living. If you start doing these, and your life is happy now, stop hoarding and boarding problems. Yeah. Because lots of people, so much they're hoarding. It's whether it's unnecessary things or on top of other things, whether it's furniture, whether it's whatever. First they move in the house, that's just a little bit, and slowly this, then the whole garage is full of stop hoarding. And there are actually boxes every shopping center. They wouldn't mind if you put that. They will appreciate if you give them. Start giving things away and live freely. And when people give things, they start free. They start feel free, really. So the whole purpose of this tonight's topic as a meditation is one needs to think that not just one night, like regularly, daily one should think about it. The person practitioner must think daily on that. Then that day would be very better lived. Firstly, if something went wrong in the morning, you don't carry on in the afternoon. You don't carry on into the night, let alone next day. You just move on, It just makes you so much fitter to see that way, and you don't lump the things up, And so practice pure Dharma. It says, there's no telling which will come first, tomorrow or next birth. Do not put effort into tomorrow's plan. It is right to work hard for your next life. Sangi chila maimeba chimeton beparik. He says, you never know whether it's tomorrow or next life which will come first. So therefore, if you do as you're going to die tomorrow, then you're making preparation good for tomorrow, whether that's tomorrow or death. And one will be able to practice pure Dharma before death. What will help at and after death, and then practice Dharma, and one will become much more focused, because thinking of death is a teaching. It points us to practice. It points us to open our sadhanas and go spend quality time do those practices. And exceptional way of dying. When you die, you will die not like a cow. You will not die like an ordinary person. You will die in a meaningful way. And thinking the words of the Buddha, and start to read, reflect on the teachings of the Buddha. They're pearl of the wisdom. They're so pertinently useful. And people, when die, they get attached to some things. But those who practice Dharma, they don't show any clinging or attachment or refusal or struggle of dying. It will be really hard for the survivors too. So one who have practiced Dharma will not be dying with a difficult death. They will not die with a tragic death, violent death, untimely death. If you practice Dharma, they say. Person who doesn't think of dying usually dies at unexpected places and times, and usually in preventable death. They die of tragic accident or violence or things they do that are completely unsafe. People who actually know dying, they don't put their life in such dangerous situations. They're much skillful to do the things that are meaningful to do. They don't make their already fragile life to be so easily exposed to danger. And therefore they're more likely to die peacefully in a much more conducive environment and places, and being able to do the things you need to do. People who are always exposing to those such dangers, lots of people these days die of preventable causes. Had they not done that dangerous sporting activities, dangerous recreation activities, climbing cliffs that never need to climb, jumping from bungee, never need to jump, don't have to do anything. All those amazing things people do with the racing cars, and they just mangle the car in no time, even themselves, And if you look at it, all the reports, people dying, not many people dying peacefully. Most people who die peacefully are elderly people, maybe. They live long and they're lucky they live long. Others are all dying. Youth death are mostly violence, drug, alcohol, driving, violence, partying and overdosing, People don't want to die, but they do it themselves just by way of it. One who is able to understand the teachings of impermanence of death, of course, learn to protect themselves out of danger and do the things that are really provisionally a good preparation for the inevitable death. It's like packing things for the journey, And when you have a journey coming up, you pack the things and then you got all the things you need. And this is not a non-journey when you die. It is definitely a departure lounge, They call God's departure lounge. I don't know whether it's God's departure lounge. Definitely it's a departure lounge. They say nursing home is God's departure lounge. nice. So the other side is God. Definitely the departure lounge. If one is departing, usually people think of what I need to take to that inevitable journey that lie ahead. So what are the things we have to think, what have I done that I really will be taking that are good? And that's consideration of karma, dharma. And if one is doing some reasonable things over the years and recent years, and one doesn't regret. One has no regret whatsoever. That's the kind of we're talking about. There's no fear of death, there's no regret, and there's no feeling of blame alda, Quite a lot of people blame when they die because they got loved ones behind. They think I didn't live long because I wouldn't be there for my little ones, and then they feel. But the one who actually have done all the whatever he or she could do, and then die without any blame, they'd be fine. They'd be fine. They'll die too, but at least they will not die as sinners. So this worrying doesn't help. The person who understands death and dying doesn't worry. This is the good thing about it. The worry and anxieties are problems of attachment and clinging. If one understands impermanence, death, what would be the basis for worry and anxiety? As if one hasn't heard of this. This is inevitable. This is just, we've been warned very early on. The certainty of death, inevitability of death, and that nothing can help. Your friend, your wealth, your joy, your positions cannot help. You can't take anything on the other side of the world. You can't even take your best pen, or whatever. Only one family photograph you might like to take. Even that is not allowed there. They don't allow anything. So only thing they allow is invisible but merits. Invisible mind stream, good merit mind stream, and so it's a very good thing to do. Is if you're coming to realize your death is coming, and you're really ready to die in a peacefully, there's a lot of gratitude. I had a very fair run of my life, unlike many others. You feel gracious towards everyone. So recollecting the kindness of others feels so good. We had some great masters pass away. They'd done the same thing. Like when Khenpo Ape passed away, he asked all his monks come. He asked them to all thank them all. He says, "I'm so sorry that I have to put you all a lot of work, And he was just so apologetic that he had to pass away, because his mind stream is like that, Of course, for the monks, it's a delight to be able to do, even like to the teacher, but he feels so ready to go, and yet he feels that he has put them into a lot of work, Because your mind stream is, you can just see the kindness of others more because of your mind stream is like that. So positive it is. It doesn't die as you didn't have a fair share of love or kindness of others. You actually have more abundant than anybody can offer. But only thing is, you couldn't quite repay the kindness maybe. Then you just feel so grateful. And when they die in a great way, It doesn't look like their death. They become immortal. It's not. Some people may miss them, but others don't really miss them. They're everywhere now. Such being is not just localized with body. It's actually his spirit or his energy, his legacy. So we call Mahaparinirvana. Buddha's passing away, his great passing away. Because before he was in one body, and then he became everywhere. Basically, he became light, so to speak. And we don't forget the omnipresence of such presence. So sever grasping to permanence, And whatever things are, one is not holding as their mine, whether it's possession or even loved ones. That's illusion to think it's mine. Nothing is mine. There's not even I itself could not be found, let alone the possession. If you have a possessor that you can establish, then you can establish the possessions. There's no possessor you can identify. So to say the that doesn't come in the mind stream of the. It sees them as an illusion that they were, but they're not. Last time we were dreaming because we were asleep. Now we woke up and realize that they are not really there. And the one who meditates regularly on the impermanence of death, you might have something that's upset you for a while, but quickly you realize it's illusion. You wake up very quickly. and it doesn't pin you down very long. It can't hold you in that low place very long, because your spirit is high enough to know not to cling to permanence, not to cling to aversion, not have attachment to anger, or not to attachment to formed object, because they are all illusion. They're just creation of one's own mind. When the mind is deluded, it sees things that object doesn't have, and it just makes it as it goes, makes up as it goes, when the mind is aware, it learns to unmake them, and almost like flying like a bird, I don't think the bird feels, I sat on that rock, that I love that rock. I want to fly, but I want to take this one too. He doesn't feel like taking any place he landed for a while. He might return there a few times if he remembers. But otherwise, he never have a sense of attachment to it as, like that's free as a bird, free as a bird when you think of dying, because bird life is like that. You never know when they're gonna die. They thought they were just landing there, but somebody shot them. They thought they were flying, but as soon as they flew, somebody picked on them. So much at the mercy and the whim of circumstances. There's no certainty how long their flight will be, whether they will land or whether they be able to find something for the young and being able to return. It's completely uncertain. And the human life is like that. So many people have so many stories how quickly something that they thought was going to go out, years just ended in smokes, and that's not because it's tragic. It's just the way it is. Everything is just constantly transpiring, constantly in a flux. Nothing is remaining still, like a river. You can never say the river is always the river. It's continuously going, and then they go, and then the ocean again, and then it becomes salty, and then again in the morning evaporates, and it goes up in the clouds, and then falls again, and slowly through the creeks it goes back into the main river again. So this constant cycle happens continuously, uninterruptedly. So one who is able to view the, when we say life, it's actually talking about duration, isn't it? And the death is that duration coming to an end. So how long is duration of life? It's a one round of breath, they said. One round of breath is the longest life of life, breath. And if it repeat twice, if it 3 times, it's all new breaths. It's new breath. There is no same life that is actually happening. There is no same life is happening. We just don't get to give ourselves a name every moment. Breath round number 1, round number 2, round number 3, round number 4, round number 5, round number 6. But when we do some changes, we adopt new names and things like that. But some people, when they change the name, they really feel they can become new. When we had Anichoki, the late Anichoki, when she became nun, she was really adamant that she's going to change her name by deed poll. She's not going to take it lightly. She's definitely going to make sure that everything is Anichoki, no longer Shirley Hori. She didn't want to have anything to do with Shirley or Hori. It's like that. I think the false notion of our certainty, our permanence, is that we have the same name. We have the same name as them, that we are the same. But actually, we are never same. The labeling base itself is not the same. Even the label might be same, but the thing that is labeled to is not the same thing anymore. It's constantly changing. So the severing permanence, grasping to permanence, is very important. And then, of course, if one finds very difficult to let go of the idea of permanence, one has to remedy these obstacles. Clinging and attachment are probably most evident examples of not realizing impermanence, death, whether it's fond objects clinging to, or unfond and unpleasant object, like angry at someone for a long time. That's a huge problem of due to not realizing impermanence. One sees no benefit. It's just toxic. It's bad for one's own spirit and them and whatever the miserable cause it is. And so, remedying the obstacle. When one understands the impermanence of death and one can't move on, one is not realizing the impermanence and death. How do you know that you are realizing impermanence and death? There's a lot of lightheartedness. There's a lot of freedom from suffering. When you realize impermanence and death, there's a lot of freedom from suffering. It doesn't mean there are no suffering, but you're not so vulnerable. You're not so maimed by them. You're not so injured by them. That happens, but it happens to everyone. So you don't over-amplify, poor me, this happened to me. You don't do that. Because of that, the death impermanence now, enhance the benefit. You can enhance the benefit as a result of meditating. You don't have that so strong, rigid feeling or thought or opinion about it. You have the lightheartedness about it. We have to make some reasonable measures of change, and the change is we are always trying to make it to enhance the benefit. We are more free, we're more lighthearted, we're much fitter to be kind, and no longer attached or angry and hurt about things, because that's enhancing benefit. It doesn't mean one has to stay stuck in one situation, thinking that one is really. One can still do the things one does, but there's a lot of lightheartedness. It's never too late, never too late to do changes, and one at least one will not go or take the direction that one feels as one is taking so-called action, which is actually destructive, negative action. One still make changes in life, but that enhances the benefit. One's freedom, lightheartedness, kindness towards other people, gratitude towards other people. You no longer hold a grudge as much as one does. Then the sign of success is that that you don't keep grudges long. Sign of realizing impermanence is that you don't see the benefit. Almost you have make a vow not to go to sleep before you forgive yourself or forgive others. I think that's a really good practice. That's practitioners always do little practice before go to sleep. That's the purpose is that. It's just review the day, and however many small things that bother you or whatever, you just do your last practice. Offer your apologies, confessions, and you're over and done with it. And then it doesn't come into your mind, or even if they do, they don't have weight on you. They don't put up impression on you. They're just illusions. You can see illusions, but they're illusions, so it's totally different. But when you think that they're real, then you're different things, it's not the not seeing bit, but how you see it, You see them as illusion, and you've been seen that many before, and you're not going to put investment into it. You don't want to put thought and feelings, emotion, and story and telling of it anymore, because that's success, sign of liberation, sign of one who's over it. So Dharma is your guide to the undeceiving path. Nobody is, nothing is. It's very important to say that, because a lot of refuge, people think refuge is some people or somebody. Refuge is the Dharma. Dharma is your guide to the undeceiving path. Dharma supplies you the long track. It's the long, however long the distance duration is. Dharma is long enough, a provision. Dharma is your captain on the difficult journey. Even in death, not in also in Bardo. If you practice in Dharma now, even death you will not be beaten by, and even Bardo you will have a captain, you will have a guide. From this moment, practice Dharma with 3 doors. This is Padamba said. Padamba Sangye is saying, instructing people that we're not trying to make it sort of miserable for people by talking about death, but making a realistic kind of actually it's about how to live. The death is actually great blessings. People who haven't recovered from death or lost, then it's become a bad curse. But those who understood the death, actually death has taught them great blessings, and then it is no longer a curse. Some people who have died, lost somebody, and then they discovered Dharma through death, loss, destruction, tragedy. Then they met Dharma. So therefore, we got to give some credit to death. It actually makes us to realize how important Dharma is. Otherwise, people feel lose somebody and they get depressed. What's the point of that? For that, we don't even want to mention death, if that's what's the purpose. Death is the instigator of the Dharma, they say. Death is the instigator of Dharma. Buddha himself, when he saw a dead person and a sick and old, that was enough. He says, please take me home. He thought his home will be much better, And then when his charioteer took him home, he thought everybody in the palace was skeletons. He couldn't see anybody in their normal form anymore. He saw them all as skeletons. He could see all the future of everybody. And it's just so, life was so unpalatable for him. He doesn't want to do any of the things that a king has to do or be a king. He doesn't want to become king. He completely, lost his appetite to be a king. On another day, he just have to leave. A kind of a biggest decision people are able to make are when they think of death. Gampopa the Great, who lost his wife and 2 children, only by the death of them, he didn't get depressed by them. He knew, what else would I need to now think to do but Dharma? And it put him on the most amazing path of Dharma because of suffering, loss. But he didn't suffer from depression. He was a matured person. He was able to understand Dharma. He was fortunate to meet Milarepa. Amazing. He was very fortunate. He wasn't just seeing a teacher who is intellectual or who just taught the theory. He actually is a teacher who actually practices bottom. He made the use of every inch of his flesh and bone to the Dharma and practice it. And Gampopa, was more than ready, because those who are not touched by death, they always ignore them. Those who are touched by the death actually are ripe for Dharma. And so therefore, it's not it may look like a suffering, but it's without suffering, Dharma is ignored. Dharma is completely ignored. Who want to practice Dharma if they don't want to see how to allay the suffering more meaningfully and more realistically? So therefore, the Buddha's, what we call turning away from his life as a king to mendicant was affected by seeing those sights, as a teaching, of course, as a teaching. And so, in our society today, death is a kind of a very, very, very small experience, because most people don't see dead body, or let alone talk about it. It's just quickly. So that's why dying itself is a meditation. Going to the cemeteries, seeing the progressive sort of deterioration of the dying person's body is very, very, very therapeutic to watch. Actually, dead person's face looks very relaxed. Very, very relaxed, completely relaxed. Living person's face is full of anxieties, full of dimples, full of this and that. But dead person's face is completely relaxed. What's the problem? No problem. Why are you looking like that? I'm completely giving up. Gave up all the fights. I'm gonna give it up. Looking at a dead people's face could be quite shocking, but actually look carefully. It doesn't look that bad. Definitely they are at peace, Definitely the consciousness left, and the consciousness in the body is not good. Consciousness out the body, then the body is just elements. It's just like earth and water and air and that. And just question is how you're going to dispose it. So this is our topic. I'm sure you will find it convenient way to relativize and make them useful in particularly in way of valuing precious human rebirth. We talk precious human rebirth. Life is precious, precious to do what? And when? How long? How much time you got? If it's precious, it's only precious because what you can do with it, and how long time you've got to do. And time is not very long, So in order not to become complacent with the precious human rebirth, the teaching of impermanence is meditated straight after that. So thank you for your diligent attendance. We will now conclude here with the dedication of marriage on page 11 and 12. By the merit of this, may we attain the state of omniscience, defeat the evil enemies of defilements. May I liberate all sentient beings from the samsara ocean, turbulent waves of birth, oldest, sickness, and death. By listening to the impressions of my teaching, whatever boundaries matter have acquired, may all sentient beings become precious and synthesis to retain excellent and precious Mahayana teachings. Changes enjoy Rinpoche, my dear Bana and Jedruje, Yeba Nyamba Meba, Gonda Gonda Bewajo. May the supreme and precious Bodhicitta take mirth, yadana soul. Where it is born may increase abundantly without degeneration.